couple of years ago where I came to know about the early chatbots, and I felt something churn in me, and I thought humans were not ready for what's about to come with the development of AI. I love technology. In fact, my whole background is with technology. So I approached it with confidence. But I also looked at the progress of social media and technology and how humans have become so automated in the process. So I went through what can only be described as a dark night of the soul, where I withdrew from social media. I pondered a lot. And I said, well, I think I need to write something. I need to speak about something for helping humans to navigate into the future. So I ended up writing a book called Leading with Wisdom. I started writing it and had no expectations. As I went along writing it, I managed to explore various themes and thinking about many things as human beings, where we are, where we were, and where we're going. And I believe that in the leadership domain, leadership has become a lot about algorithms, data, and not enough about feeling, about emotion, and about connecting with our people. Now, we know algorithms are wonderful, chatbots are amazing, but there's a price that we're paying. And the price that we pay is the loss of human understanding of what it means to be human. So let me ask you a question. What does it mean to be human for you? And to a lot of people, that sounds like a ridiculous question. But let me ask you, what separates you from a machine? The reason we need to ask this question is because we need to say where machines come in handy, where algorithms come in handy, and where humans are most important. And it's not us versus them, machine against humans at all. In fact, it's us forgetting what it means to be human. So part of my exploration was, do we know what it means to be human? So let's talk a little bit about what it means to be human. We're talking about intuition, this knowingness, something that tells us if something is right or wrong, something within us, the ability to sense, to perceive, to know before data presents itself. I was recently in a boardroom and I looked at people staring at the screen. They looked at the dashboard, nobody was having conversations. And that alarmed me because what makes us essentially human is our ability to communicate and have differing opinions. And we know recently we found a lot with the chatbots confirming your opinion and basically hallucinating and confirming that what you know is already the truth. So what ends up happening is our ability to perceive the broader picture is narrowing. And that started quite a long time ago. So what we have is a very reductive view of looking at the world. We've mastered the art very successfully and very usefully to bring everything down into small little bites and narrow our view instead of seeing the whole. And there's the left brain and the right brain, the different parts of us. Now, if you look at an algorithm in the chatbot and the people that write it, it's very much left brain. It's very much facts, figures, very useful, extremely useful. Then we have the right side of the brain, which brings in the total picture. It can feel, it can intuit, it can know, it can sense. And we know that what happens in one department affects what happens in another. We also intuitively know that, and I use the word intuitively, what does that mean? It means intuiting within us. We know what is good and what is bad. And this is what Plato spoke about. Plato spoke about these Platonic values of beauty, goodness, and truth. Beauty, goodness, and truth are something that's so fundamental to being human. The other thing that we need to not forget is that AI can mimic human behavior. And humans, if they're not careful, become more like machines. So then people talk about AI becoming sentient, which doesn't concern me at all. What concerns me is that humans could even pose this question and feel threatened by this question because we don't know what essentially makes us human. And having a soul, having the ability to know what is purpose, what is meaning, what is truth, is fundamentally important to what it means to be human. So we have to understand a type of thinking is called a calculative type of thinking, which reduces everything to small bits. It doesn't see how parts are interconnected. So what we end up doing through this is we look at everything, and you see it even in our what we do with health and what we do with wellness and how we eat, and it's all very purpose driven. And I bring in a concept that Heidegger, famous philosopher from the 70s, spoke about, which is meditative thinking. So it's a state of being. So instead of you seeing the forest as trees to be consumed, and instead of you seeing people in your company as disposable assets on a spreadsheet, we pause and we realize that we need to embody a state of being. So, in my book and in my seminars, I teach leaders how to be still. You see, wisdom doesn't shout, it doesn't scream, it doesn't say, listen to me. You look at my 5 points. Look at how I've got all the solutions, because our attention spans have become that of 30 seconds. We are in now what we call the attention economy. So wisdom is quiet. It pauses. It breathes. It doesn't act it doesn't act immediately. It can look at the data. It can, and this is for leaders. You look at the data, you feel, you allow, and we have these amazing abilities within us. Technology, interestingly enough, the ability, we have our brain, which is wonderful, and then we have our hearts, and then we have our gut, and there are neurons, over 500 million neurons in our gut alone. And we know that the heart sends more signals from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. And Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers of our time, who brought us much of what we understand today, said that the brain is a lump of flesh used to keep the body cool, and the heart is the center of our being and of our existence. But what we've done right now is that we've put our brain at the center and we've ignored the heart. But listening to your heart is extremely important. So a lot of the things that I talk about, people say, what does this have to do with leadership? In fact, that's why I wrote the book, because it's precisely where this belongs, in leadership, where we listen to our intuition. We listen to what's right for us and for our company and for our people, even though the manual says you don't have to worry about that. How we let go of people, how we make decisions that affect the planet. 80% of the topsoil on our planet has been depleted. And this is the calculative thinking that just thinks from one place to the other, not having a vision of the future. And us as humans, we have souls. We have this ability, when we know it doesn't feel right in our souls, we've got to have the sober courage. We've got to be able to stand up and say, we can't be reacting and behaving the same way. We are reaching planetary boundaries right now, and expand on this in my book, talking about people like Dr. Zach Bush, who's talking about us as a planet having 60 more years. I talk about Daniel Schmachtenberger, who talks about the meta crisis, and all these things interwoven in the way that we think and the way we react and the way that we lead. So it's extremely important right now to adopt regenerative leadership. It's not even sustainable leadership, it's regenerative. We've got to be thinking about the future. We've got to be planning for our children. We've got to look at how we're leading and governing for the future and for the present and for the planet, and how everything that we do is interrelated. Because what we find right now is people being in silos. So they'll say, well, you're in accounting and you're in technology, and the two of you never talk to each other. And that's the old method. And that came out of the Industrial Revolution, where everybody became, cogs in a wheel. But we know companies have changed, and the way that we engage on an everyday, day-to-day basis has changed dramatically. And when we start reaching planetary boundaries, it is not a case of, do we slow down? Do we pause? Do we decide on whether to implement this technology or not? It becomes paramount for the future of the same company that you're working for. So it's not about retaining jobs. It's about courage, sober courage, to recognize the role that you have and to listen deep within your soul and realize that the responsibility that you have is of a gardener tending to a field. And your job is not to simply complete numbers and get paid at the end of the month. It's to take on the role as a regenerative leader, restoring the future and protecting the current place that we are right now as a people and as a planet. And it all starts with the way that we think. and the way that we being and how we engage. So if we take a moment for a second and we pause and we say, what does my mind say about this? What my brain say about this? What does my heart say about that? And so I teach leaders when they're in confusion with the immense amount of data available right now and the confusing narratives. How does a leader act, whether to implement the technology or not implement the technology, right? What do we have as technology within us to be able to make a decision? And I talk about decision making. So if we listen to our mind, then we listen to our heart, and we listen to our gut, and we say, what does my gut say? What does my heart say? And what does my mind say? You are now bringing into alignment all three centers, and you have a holistic picture. And one important question that I ask all leaders is to say, how does what I say and do now affect 7 generations later? How does what I have to do now and act affect the broader planet and people? Because we have to have concern for the entire ecosystem, and we are stewards of the future. We are not simply role bearers going from one post to the other. So I urge you all. This is the first time I'm announcing it officially, and I told Bob I'm very excited about it because I had no idea the type of coverage I would get with this. And when the largest publisher in the world, Penguin, agreed to publish my book, I was overwhelmed. And then I knew that the world have people who have concern for the planet and are interested in sustaining the future. So I urge you to read Leading with Wisdom, and I'd love to see you at one of my talks or one of my workshops again. Thank you very much.